Welcome to Unlocking Your Truth, another podcast by Dr. Leslie Phillips.
Hello listeners, you are tuning in to Unlocking Your Truth with Dr. Leslie and Corey.
Hello.
And we're broadcasting on 101.7 FM across the Fraser Valley from the unceded territory of the Stolo Nation. We are here every Tuesday evening from 7 to 8 p.m. Pacific time. And Unlocking Your Truth is a talk show about metaphysics and spirituality. And every week we have a different topic. And our goal is to inspire you and to enlighten you and help you on your spiritual path to becoming a more awakened human and individual.
At least we try.
We do our best, and we invite different guests on to help us out with that as well. And today we do have a guest, and you know, we're going to be talking about a health-related topic, which I think is a really important health-related topic and something that affects a lot of people. And I think there's a lot of confused and exacerbated people out there. And I'm hoping that our guest today is going to help all of you that might fit into that category. And what our guest, and her name, by the way, is Maria Aparis, is going to be talking about is wellness begins in the gut.
Yay.
And specifically, the relationship between autoimmune disease and the gut, and some natural and holistic steps that you can take to restore health on that level of immunity in the gut. So let me tell you a little bit about her. So she was somebody who was quite the jet setter. Someone who attended red carpet events in Hollywood. But she was at the height of her jet-setting career when everything came to a screeching halt due to a debilitating autoimmune disease known as Hashimoto's. And so she was sort of forced into this situation where she was navigating her way through extreme fatigue, brain fog, weight gain, vertigo, insomnia, near-fatal anemia, and a tumor in her throat. And she found that the medical system, the conventional Western medical system, didn't really help. It just made her feel worse. And she actually spent thousands and thousands of dollars on trying to deal with this diagnosis, and it left her broken. But she was determined to find a way to get her life back. So she determined that she was going to take her health into her own hands, and she began to explore natural plant resources. And through her research, she realized that the gut is what she says ground zero for our wellness. It all starts in the gut. And she wrote a book called The Essential Gut Awakening, Mastering Hashimoto's and Other Autoimmune Diseases. And she is going to share, well, in the book, and today, hopefully in the show, she's going to share her intimate journey of how she healed herself. And she found her own unique combination of things that helped her, that included high vibrational, all natural plant allies, ancient yogic science, and quantum energy mindset. Welcome to the show, Maria.
Hi, thank you for inviting me. I'm so excited to be here.
Well, we're excited to have you on the show because on the one hand, I think that your story is, at least the beginning part of it, is not unusual. I mean, I don't know the incidence of Hashimoto's, but I do believe that there are a lot of people who are struggling with that, or something that is leading up to that. So, because I think there are a lot of people struggling with it who might not meet the threshold for a doctor to diagnose them with Hashimoto's, and yet that same symptomology is present, maybe just not as a severe enough way for the doctors to recognize it. And so I'm wondering if you could just start by sharing a little bit more about your journey, so other people in a similar situation can sort of identify with it. So what happened?
So to start, the symptoms kind of came on in a sneaky kind of way. So you really don't realize that you're not feeling well until you're really not feeling well. It's almost like day and night, and the shift is pretty instant. So what I noticed first was that I was hiking a canyon here in LA, and I was going about 2 to 3 times a week, and I was in great shape, size 4, super athletic. I would go home from these hikes and crash and burn. And I'm not talking just like a little 10-minute cat nap to recover. I'm talking lights out. A bomb could go off near my brain and I would not know it because I was just that fatigued. So I noticed that my energy was not the same, and I had put on a few pounds, and I'm going to say probably between 5 and 7 pounds.
Right.
And I know it doesn't sound like a lot, but for somebody who's super athletic and always working all the time, that was a lot. So I went to my first general practitioner, and I'll never forget this experience because he was so demeaning and so condescending. He was just like, "Oh, Maria, you're just getting older. You're going to have to exercise more." And so I really took that to heart. I listened to my doctor's advice. I walked out of there without taking any kind of test, no blood pressure, no blood test, nothing, because he didn't offer it, for one thing. And I worked harder. I started hiking 3 to 5 times a week. And I put myself into a major adrenal crash. Not adrenal fatigue, but adrenal crash. And my honey said, "You're slurring your words when you talk. It's really kind of crazy how this is happening because it's like your words aren't coming together." And in my brain, my words came out fine. And so he was telling me to put my arms up. He was thinking I was having some kind of stroke, right? So he was saying, "Can you repeat the sentence?" And I could repeat the sentence. But anytime that I had to just speak on my own, it was slurred. It was not making any sense. And so this got worse and worse. So I went to the grocery store. I picked up some groceries. I went out to my car, and I completely forgot why I had gone in there. And so I went back into the grocery store, and I was looking around to try to see if it would trigger my memory. And the guy said, "Hey, ma'am, you forgot your groceries. You paid for them, but you left them here." And I was like, "Oh my goodness." So I went back to my car. I started bawling my head off because I thought, "Oh my God, I'm getting Alzheimer's. I'm getting dementia. I'm losing it." And so that's when I had like this serious wake-up call that whatever it was obviously not under that general practitioner's bandwidth, right?
Yes, yeah.
So a friend suggested that I see a naturopath. And a naturopath is a natural doctor. They use as many non-prescriptions as they can, and if they can, and to see if they can get you back on track. So I went to her, and she said, "Your blood count for your iron is 0.3. So I don't know if you know how dangerous that is, but that's pretty dangerous. There was actually no oxygen getting up into my brain.
Right.
And so that's why I had the slurred speech. That's why I had the brain fog, the memory loss, all of these incredible symptoms. And so progressively, all of these symptoms just started getting worse, even though I was working with a naturopath. Because the one thing that every single person that I went to see, and I went to acupuncturists, chiropractors, Ayurveda specialists, naturopaths, I mean, you name it, I went to them. And the one thing that I felt that they all had in common was that they were trying to treat more symptoms than cause.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people don't understand Hashimoto's disease and autoimmune diseases, and that the supplements that they were giving me weren't absorbing into my body. So those are all three major key ingredients, I want to say, into what we want to build. So the one thing that you did say at the very beginning was that all of these things left me broke and broken.
Yeah.
The truth is it left me broke monetarily, but not broken. Because
Right.
I was able to keep that one sense of myself, my highest, most divine self knew that this was not going to be the story I was going to die with. It just wasn't.
Mm-hmm.
And so in that fire in my belly, right, that inner peace, that knowing, knew that if I kept pushing and pursuing, that I would find what it would take to get me back to a healthful life. So all of that led to my gut, and that's where we begin.
Mm-hmm. And so I'm not even sure in that answer that you gave me that you actually got to the diagnosis of Hashimoto's yet. Who was it who actually put that label on what you were? Was it the doctor? Was it the naturopath? When did you put the label Hashimoto's on what you were suffering from?
I'm so glad you brought that up, because it took 9 months to diagnose Hashimoto's disease. Now, for me, when somebody says, I have fatigue, I've gained weight, I have brain fog, I can't focus, I have insomnia, I automatically ask them, have you been tested for Hashimoto's disease or hypothyroidism?
Right.
And so I am still to this day convinced that I paid for this naturopath's either car or student loan or whatever it was, because for 9 months it took her to even get to a Hashimoto's kind of diagnosis test.
Yeah.
To me, it seems so obvious, and I don't know.
I agree with you. Or diabetes. I think some of the symptoms there correlate with diabetes as well. But yes, I mean, even to a layperson, a relatively educated layperson, you would think that that's where you would go with those symptoms.
Exactly. So I did feel that, when she figured it out, and then I realized what I had and how it was easy to diagnose with some simple tests. Why weren't those a part of the test that she did initially? Mm-hmm. And why did it take so long? And here's the catalyst. When I told her, look, I've spent so much money and nothing seems to be working, I'm going to have to go somewhere else. And she said, let me just check one more thing. I have a hunch it could be one more thing. And that's miraculously when she found it. And that was like, oh, so you were going to lose me as a client, so then you needed to bait me to get me to stay. So anyway, I'm just going to chalk that up to my own experience and what I learned along the way.
And I think, one of the points that's coming through here, I think it's so important that we each take responsibility for our health. Really, ultimately, it's your body, it's your reality, and they're the best hands that you can put yourself in, really. So and even when you get a health diagnosis, like a label, like you have Hashimoto's, I mean, really, what does that mean? Because they're not always really approaching it holistically. Like you said, they're approaching the symptomology, and they're not always really understanding what's going on at the core of the disease. So tell us more about what you started to discover about this condition that you had, and how to nurture yourself back to health.
Okay, so I went all plant-based, and what that means is that when I was, at the time, I owned a spa in Santa Monica, and there was a massage therapist who was coming in to demo for a spa job. And she said, do you mind if I use these essential oils on you? And I said, you can use Exxon, you can use WD-40, I don't really care. I just need to get this done so that I can go home and sleep, right? That was my main objective at that point. And so she used this essential oil, and it had very grounding properties in it. So it was a combination of cypress, pine, other tree oils. It was a delicious blend. And when I inhaled that, because my adrenals were in such crisis, And because my whole entire body was in such crisis, when I inhaled that, it went straight into my limbic system and it just calmed me down. And I felt it viscerally. I felt it physically. I felt it in every single sense of my being, that I knew that somehow these oils were going to have a play in my getting better, somehow in my journey. So I researched the oils and I found, I was like, is there something for hypothyroidism? Is there something for Hashimoto's disease? And I looked up that clove essential oil is a great antioxidant. It's higher on the scale than blueberries and goji berries and all of that. So then I found that lemongrass oil is a natural anti-inflammatory. And one of the biggest things that we're working with in autoimmune disease is to try to keep the inflammation down. So I immediately started playing around with these. And I put the lemongrass and the clove directly on my throat. Mm-hmm. And then I also used frankincense, because frankincense was, from what I found, supposed to be an all-around general immune booster.
Mm-hmm. Can I ask you, so you put them directly on your throat. Did you dilute them or you put them full strength on your throat?
I started with full strength because I didn't know how to use them. And so ignorance is bliss in this case, because I felt like the more I did it, the more my body responded. And so I used an unscented lotion, and I started using the lemongrass and frankincense all over my body. And I'm not talking like, dousing myself with it, but, 2 to 3 drops with the lotion and kind of bringing it into balance. Because essential oils are so incredibly strong and potent. And a little
well, yes, and that was sort of one of my concerns, is because when especially if you've got some immune stuff going on, the immune system sometimes reacts to essential oils. I know just from my own personal experience, I have a horrendous allergy to tea tree oil, or if I put full strength oils directly on my skin, I come out in a rash. So I'm just curious whether this combination would work for everybody, or
I don't believe that there's a one-size-fits-all.
No, neither do I. Yeah.
So I think for me, I was so willing to jump into something that my body already responded positively to. Mm-hmm. So for me, I was like, okay, well, so far so good. So let me see what else I can do. And so the more I got into using these essential oils, and let me tell you, essential oils are as medicine, right? Mm-hmm. So we don't want to just blindly put them on. They can disrupt hormones. They can also support hormones, right?
Right.
So we want to use them with not so much caution, but
wisdom.
Yes, wisdom.
Yeah.
You're right, spot on with that. And so getting all the books and diving into webinars, seminars, you name it, I jumped in to find as much information that I could find. So somebody from this company said, these essential oils have supplements, and they will probably support what's going on in your body. And I was like, at that point, no way. I'm not doing another supplement because they don't work. It's a waste of money, and I'm frustrated with it all. Mm-hmm. And they said, but the essential oils seem to be working for you. You might want to consider these. So I thought about it. I meditated on it, and I got a yes. Try it. Give it a try. And so I kept using the essential oils topically. I started taking these supplements.
Were the supplements actually taking essential oils internally? Is that what the supplements were?
Yes, they had some, but they were diluted, and they were not made from somebody in their garage. They were from an actual company that had done plenty of research, from what I'm told. And
high grade, pure.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I felt comfortable using them at the time. And so the thing is that as we educate ourselves, we move along with our journey, right? So we don't, as we're doing this, we're becoming our own advocate. in what we're doing in our journey, instead of just saying, okay, I'm taking this and this is the thing that I'm going to take for the rest of my life because that works. Well, it does for a time, but then you want to keep progressing, right? So you want to keep adding things.
Because you're changing your physiology and your body, and so what's working for you at one stage of the recovery process might not be the same as what you need for the next stage of the recovery process.
That's exactly right. And so with that, everything that I kept learning and expanding in my awareness, in my awakening, I discovered that the reason that those supplements from my naturopaths and everybody else that they were giving me wasn't working was because they were not getting absorbed into my gut.
Right.
So on the third day of taking these new supplements, we were able to discover the absorption factor.
Okay, well, that's fantastic. And let's talk about the gut and absorption into the gut in the second part of the show. Listeners, you've been listening to Unlocking Your Truth with Dr. Leslie and with Corey, and to this evening's guest, Maria Aparis, and we're talking about Hashimoto's disease and the connection with the gut and Maria's personal journey to healing herself. We'll be back after these messages. Welcome back, listeners. You are tuning in to Unlocking Your Truth with Dr. Leslie and Corey, and with our guest this evening, Maria Aparis. And Maria has written a book called The Essential Gut Awakening, Mastering Hashimoto's and Other Autoimmune Diseases. And she came to write that book as a result of her personal journey in recovering from Hashimoto's disease and finding a unique combination of interventions that worked for her. And just before the break, Maria, we started talking about gut absorption and how a lot of the treatments that doctors and naturopaths had given you in your original pursuit for restoring wellness didn't work because they weren't being absorbed into the gut. And that you were then discovered essential oils and started taking them internally, and then you were about to tell us a little bit more about gut absorption and the role it plays in our health in general, and specifically to the condition that you were experiencing.
Yes, so let me clarify that taking the essential oils internally, these were in supplements. So I wasn't just taking drops of essential oils and taking them internally, because that's something entirely different and not something I really truly recommend. So, so these essential oils were in the supplements. The supplements were working because one of them had astaxanthin in it. And astaxanthin is a krill, which is a highly quality form of anti-inflammatory for the body. And so immediately I felt just a sense of my body that it was responding in a really positive way. And the other had a mitochondrial kind of boost to it. Mm-hmm. And that was giving me some energy. And the third one was vitamins. But the vitamins, and all of these were in a form of what's called nano-enhanced in delivery. So basically, just to break that down, nano-enhanced is a water-soluble vitamin, so to speak, in the most fundamental term. And that's what we're looking for, because when you look at the vitamins on the shelves and you go into all of these vitamin stores, they're pressed together, mm-hmm. and by the time they reach the gut, they're not getting absorbed into the bloodstream. And the reason is because, one, they're made that way, but two, if you have any kind of autoimmune disease, then you pretty much, I'm going to say in general, are experiencing leaky gut syndrome.
Right.
So leaky gut syndrome means that you need extra help and assistance with getting these vital nutrients absorbed into the body. So it's as if you have leaky gut. Just let me give you a brief description of what leaky gut is. So it's You know when you get a cut on your finger and the blood rushes to that area and there's heat? Well, that's your body's defense mechanism to say if there's any germs or microbes or bacteria that can get into that cut, it wants to make sure that it stays out.
Right.
Okay. So now you look at your gut and you want to picture your gut as having leaky gut syndrome, and that's as if your gut has tiny cuts all over it.
Yeah.
So your immune system is sending in the troops, and when it sends in the troops, the troops don't know if it's a good cell to attack or a bad cell to attack, because it ends up attacking everything, and that's why it's called autoimmune disease. So it doesn't know if there's something in there that they should totally get rid of or keep. And this is what starts the cycle of this inflammatory response in our body. So the histamine levels go up, you get skin rashes, you get mucus and tons of allergies, you get lots of colds. It will find the weakest link. In my case, it was my thyroid for Hashimoto's. In other cases, it could be the pancreas for diabetes, organs for lupus, nerve endings. It just goes on and on and on. So it finds the weakest link, and once it finds that, it can find others. It will just keep going. And so the first thing that you find on most people when they're starting to get sick is little rashes that pop up or allergy symptoms.
Right.
When somebody says, oh, I have allergies, the seasonal allergies, that to me is a telltale sign that their gut is experiencing extreme inflammatory responses. So how did these get in my body? They got in through the absorption factor. So once I put 2 and 2 together, I was like, okay, so if I can nurture my body and actually get these vitamins, these minerals, these supplements absorbed into my body, then my body started to heal, and really quickly. And so what happened is about 3 months after taking these supplements, a tumor appeared on my throat. Now, the tumor was about the size of a golf ball. And most people think, oh my goodness, a tumor, blah, blah, blah. But I never went there because there was something in this that felt like it was supposed to be happening.
So this happened 3 months after beginning these supplements, which were part of the route to wellness. Then you discovered this golf ball sized tumor in your thyroid.
Yes. And what it felt to me, and purely by intuition and by feeling, is that it was drawing the toxins out of my body, out of my thyroid. And what your body does naturally is encapsulate things that aren't supposed to be there.
Yeah.
So for me, I was like, well, this isn't such a bad thing. I mean, it looks like a golf ball in my throat, but my body's doing what it's supposed to be doing. So now let's take it a step further. My physical body was getting into alignment, and now I needed to work on my quantum body, if you will, right? So I wanted to go into that what's not seen, what is that feeling again? So that going back to that feeling, that gut feeling of knowing that this wasn't a bad thing, I could focus on sending it lots of love and patience and understanding, and knowing that whatever was going to result from this was going to be absolutely for my greatest good, and that I would learn the most amazing thing. Because when you look at adversities in your life, as from a child on up into today, every single adversity, if you can turn it into a teaching moment, you learn so much more about yourself, the environment, and other people, right? Instead of taking some kind of victim stance on it and like, oh my God, I have a tumor. Oh my God, my life is over. Instead, I was like taking the reins back of my life and saying, this is awesome, because I feel this is getting the stuff out of my body, which means I'm on the right track, which means that I can take it a step further, send it love, send it gratitude, send it so much amazing energy.
So you're sending love to the tumor and thanking it for doing the cleanup job.
Yes, absolutely. And within 6 months, it went away. And I went back to the doctors because obviously you want to do the right thing. You want to make sure that you're seeing your practitioners. And I went to my specialist, and he took an MRI. We did a biopsy. We did all of that stuff. So it's super responsible, and yet still going on feeling.
So it's like it localized everything, so it could then clear it, sort of localize it into one spot.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Very
And I kept the mental state. Like I kept that positive vibration and frequency that I was just going to swallow it and scoop it out. It was just going to be a part of me that needed to be there so that I could learn a very powerful and valuable lesson, and then use that some way to help humanity, which is write the book and teach as many people as I can about this process, and then let it go. I no longer needed it, and I have learned so much from it.
Mm. Yeah, no, definitely. And I mean, that is such a unique approach to having a tumor. And I mean, I believe that those nodes in the thyroid are really common with Hashimoto's. So lots of people with Hashimoto's end up with some kind of tumorous thing in the throat, in the thyroid, and that's such a scary thing because, you know, cancer is like the scariest word in a way in the English, or tumor in the English language, and it's usually not perceived to be something that's helping anything at all. It's perceived to be something that needs to be irradiated and, you know, destroyed with chemicals. And so no, I'm it's fascinating that you just didn't go into any of that place, but went, you know, saw it as a helper. And I think it's a very healthy perspective.
Yes, and in fact, I feel that if we have coaches, wellness coaches, that can actually work with somebody, like I see my clients and we work, you know, via Zoom, so that I can really get a feel for where their mindset is.
Right.
Because if you have that doomsday mindset, that will be your outcome.
Yes, exactly.
So if you have the mindset, and every day, you know, I may try something new along the way, and it may take me 10 steps back, right? But in those 10 steps back, I still have come so far that I know that if I just make some tiny adjustments and change the frequency, it's like turning the dial of the radio, right? You want to find that right frequency so that you know you're on the right path.
Yeah.
And so when I work with my clients, if they have that kind of mentality, I understand that, but let's start changing that. And that's like, when you start changing that, going from a negative to a positive, it's not becoming Pollyanna and saying, you know, oh, life is just beautiful no matter what's going on.
Yeah, it's not fake. It's not just covering up reality with a fake sheen.
No, it's not. In fact, and to me, it's very real, because if you go to your most divine self, if you tune in to your highest realm, then you'll find that you don't really, really associate with sickness and illness.
Oh. You associate with love and light and the highest vibrations in existence. So, exactly.
So what I had to do to find that place of when I decided that I was going to take on this disease, I had to go back and trace when that precise moment happened. And
yes, and that's what I wanted to ask you about next, because you're talking about beliefs, because there must be a core belief that's anchored somewhere in your past that set you on that trajectory to developing it in the first place. So what was it?
So I grew up with a really beautiful household. My parents were still to this day very close. It wasn't until I met somebody later in my life that said something to me that I didn't understand and took on. So it was their truth, but it was not my truth. Right. And in that moment, I stifled what I wanted to say and what I felt and what I knew to be true. And so it all accumulated in my throat chakra. Mm. And because of what this person said, I felt sad, depressed, ugly, not worthy, all of those things that women tend to have a tendency to take on. And all of those things came crashing in and crashed my body, my soul.
You know, it's interesting because I think Hashimoto's affects women more than it affects men.
I don't think I've I've heard of Hashimoto's, but I've never actually spoken to anybody about the disease in itself, like who's had it or understood it. It's very interesting. One of those diseases that's probably relatively common, but very unknown.
Well, it affects a lot of women, I think mainly women. That's very interesting because, you know, it's kind of associated with some tendencies within our cultural environment.
I think so. I mean, it's to me, it's like a suppression kind of disease. Like, it's not being able to feel valued, heard, self-worthiness, all of those things. And those tend to have a tendency to go more towards the female in the Piscean age, but working more towards the Aquarian age, which we're into right now. It's women coming out and being able to find their truth and speaking
up. Exactly.
Yes. So it all kind of correlates with what's happening in this great awakening that's taking place, right? So over 14 million women in the U.S. have Hashimoto's disease. And
that's a lot.
It's a lot. And 50 million on top of that with other autoimmune diseases.
Yeah.
So when you think about it, it all starts in the gut. And what do we spend less time focusing on? Is that gut instinct, that gut intuition, that gut knowingness. So what scientists have discovered is that in Genesis, in vitro, we are forming the neural crest, but then we also come down and form what they call the second brain, but I call the first brain. And this comes down, and this is where we're fed, we're nurtured through our mothers in the womb. All of the nutrients come in here. And it wasn't until later, my belief system, is that we developed the eyes to see our food, smell our food, hear our food, and eat our food. So when you go to the main focal point of where our prana comes from is in that gut. Where we absorb all our nutrients is in our gut. And 80% of the communication comes from our gut through the vagus nerve to the brain. So we think the brain is in control when actually it's the gut that's telling the hormones what to do, telling us, how to regulate all the body functions. It's really grand central.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's where everything starts, isn't it? And so teach us some more about how to keep the gut healthy.
Okay, so first of all, everyone should be eliminating gluten.
Oh, I think we're going to have to do that question after the break. I just noticed we've got to go to a break. But let's talk about gut health when we get back.
Bad.
After these messages. We'll be back in a moment on Unlocking Your Truth, listeners. Welcome back, listeners. You are tuning in to Unlocking Your Truth with Dr. Leslie, with Corey, and our guest, Maria Aparis, who is teaching us about many things, but one of the things that we really wanted to pick her first brain about is gut health. And Maria, you were about to tell us all what from your perspective are the key ingredients or the key things that we should pay attention to in order to nurture and have a healthy gut environment.
Okay, so my first things are no glutens. Glutens contain, for the most part, glyphosate. Glyphosate is deadly, and it's breaking down our gut. So for people who say, I don't need to be gluten-free, I don't believe that. I believe that everybody needs to be gluten-free because eventually those pesticides and chemicals are going to break down your gut. It's just a matter of time. So eliminate, I keep saying eliminate, eliminate gluten would be one thing. The second thing is nightshades, potatoes, tomatoes, eggplant, goji berries, chili peppers. They all have their own natural pesticide. And this can be very agitating to the gut and can also exacerbate the leaky gut syndrome. And the next thing is eggs. If you have eggs, they carry this, you know how they're kind of mucousy?
Yes, yes.
So if you have allergies or leaky gut syndrome, autoimmune, eggs can help carry bacteria in your body through your body because they have that mucousy kind of texture. So that's another one.
Does that include like baking with eggs as well, or just eggs as independent?
For me, it does. So for me, I had to cut out all eggs. Now, do what you think is best. There are times when I've introduced eggs back into my system and it doesn't go well. So I just stay clear of them now.
So what happens when you eat eggs?
I first noticed that I'll get some kind of rash on my body. And because Hashimoto's is, you can send it into remission, but you can bring it back like that.
Right.
So it's one of those things where it's really not worth it. You know, there are other things that we can have that are, especially nowadays with all the gluten-free options that we have. There's so many breakfast cereals and breakfast breads and things.
Is it the same with the nightshades that you get a rash as if you were to eat a tomato, or?
Yes, absolutely. Rashes will pop up, and for me, they're hot, blistery rashes, and they'll pop up anywhere on the body, and I found things that will work. One is a cedar essential oil mixed with eucalyptus, mixed with a carrier, and I usually use coconut or almond oil as a carrier. The combination, for some reason, of these three elements will help get rid of the rash pretty instantly. Also, lemon balm is really great to add to your tea. If you have lemon balm tea, you could also do the herbal lemon balm, which is also Melissa essential oil.
Okay.
So if you have any of those that you can use topically, the lemon balm you can take internally, and the Melissa you can use externally. Just topically apply that.
Yeah. So eliminate gluten, eliminate nightshades, eliminate eggs. What else is on your list for repairing and healing and maintaining a healthy gut?
No dairy, no corn, no soy.
What about sugar?
No sugar.
Okay.
That's a given for anybody, but yes, you know, if you can, some people love stevia, some people hate it, but I personally love it. So
I love it too. I've been using stevia for 15 years now, before it was even legal in Canada to use it. But it's great stuff. Yeah.
So is the corn and the soy got to do with pesticides or GMOs?
Both, actually. So corn, obviously, it's so loaded. Even organic corn will break down as a sugar in your body. So you might as well just eliminate it. And soy has estrogen. Your body recognizes it as estrogen.
Yes.
Hashimoto's can cause an estrogen dominance in the body. So adding more of something that will simulate estrogen is not ideal. So another thing that people often overlook is what they put on their body topically. So shampoos, lotions, all of those things. We want to make sure that they are organic, natural, plant-based products.
Yeah, paraben free and free of all of those.
everything free.
Same chemicals that they load everything with.
So the diet you're recommending sounds like actually keto on steroids.
It's like keto. I personally don't fast. With having Hashimoto's, metabolism, it needs to be fired all the time. You have to keep your metabolism just like going. And I have found that if I fast, I want to pass out. It affects me the extreme opposite of what a normal person on keto would be able to experience. I do mostly the paleo minus the eggs and everything that we talked about. I eat small meals every 3 hours during the day. There's also just every body is different. So it's like when you come to me as a client for some advice, we'll start with where you're at, because my level has already been through like from here to the highest level. When I meet people, they're down here. I can't get them up here right now because they'll never, they're going to say, you want me to get rid of eggs? Are you crazy? You know what I mean? So I start with where they're at and what they're willing to do. And a lot of it, honestly, is your mindset.
Oh, definitely.
First place that, yes, we have to change some dietary things, but if your mind's not there and you don't picture yourself as being well and vibrant and healthy, it doesn't matter what I give you.
Exactly.
And I find people also lie to themselves quite a bit. I was we do keto. Leslie and I are on keto, and I've lost like 35 pounds, and I feel great on it. And so I'll sit I'm also in the film industry, so I work as an extra, and so I'll sit at the table talking to some young guy, and he says, "Oh yeah, I do keto." And next thing you know, he's gone out and he's brought back 2 muffins, and like Costco muffins. And like, come on, you can't possibly do one and say you're doing it. I mean, they think they're doing it, and you must run into that as well, where people are actually, fooling themselves to think that they are following your advice.
Well, they don't mean to. And so that's, you know what I mean? Like I don't want to say that they're lying to themselves or they're in denial. They're doing the best that they can with the tools that they have. And until we give them more tools, they're really limited. And that's why I call it the gut awakening, the essential gut awakening. Because as we wake others up, then we're tuning in their frequency to something else. And if they stay in this frequency, then we can only give them a little bump to go to the next one, It's almost like stepping stairs, right? And so their intentions are probably in the right space. They just don't have the tools to get them through. So it takes breath work. It takes meditation. It takes mindset. It takes energy affirmations. I also use hemp oil. Hemp is a huge part of my life and recently became legal here in the United States. And so for years, I wouldn't have anything to do with it, right? Because I was like, oh no, that's illegal. It's a drug. I don't want to have anything to do with that. And when I learned about what happens that we have an actual endocannabinoid system, we like a skeletal system, our neurological system, we actually have a system in our body with receptors waiting for cannabinoid dials to lock in.
Really?
Yes. Wow. So this was discovered in the mid-90s by Dr. Ralph Mushalem out of Israel. And what he discovered was that throughout our body, in our brain, in our bones, in our just everywhere, our reproductive system, we have these receptors, CB1 and CB2 receptors, that are literally like a glove waiting for the baseball to come in. And so when we get those, he actually named these receptors anandamides. And ananda means bliss in Sanskrit. And so when you think of it, when you get this into your body goes into homeostasis. Now, when we're in homeostasis, that's when our body starts to heal. Whenever you have a cold or a flu, your doctor will say, go home and rest. That's the best thing you can do, right? So when we're in that restful state, our body starts to heal. And getting this into, especially in today's society where we're all just so stressed and frazzled and in our phones and in the TV and all of these things with electromagnetic frequencies, all the food that we eat, we need that bliss, right? And I'm not saying like you need the THC. Some people, now there's two frames of thought here. One is I need the THC in order for the cannabinoid dials to work. My thought is I don't need the THC in order for the cannabinoid dials to work, right? We're getting those phyto nutrients into our body, and what we're looking for is a nano-enhanced liposomal delivery, because the hemp molecule is really big. And so when you reduce it down into the size, the particle size, it's small enough to actually get absorbed into the bloodstream. That's what we're looking for. Otherwise, you're wasting your money getting it at whatever online store or wherever you're purchasing it. You really want to look for that nano-enhanced liposomal delivery. And I only know of one place that does it. So I always say, to my clients, this is what I trust. And this is what works for me.
So if there are natural cannabinoid receptors in the human body, there must be natural molecules that the human body is producing within itself that are meant to lock onto those receptors.
There are. Women produce natural cannabinoid dials when they're breastfeeding for their baby. That's why the baby gets all blissed out. And so the thing is that we don't have the food and the nutrients that we used to have. Like, so say, for example, if we eat meat, the cows used to eat the cannabis and the hemp, and that would get into their digestive tract, and then we would drink their milk and eat their cheese and eat their meat, right? So we were getting it up until about the 1930s. And if you look at health and when it started to decline, it was around that time when it really took a downfall.
So we're getting towards the end of the show. So I wanted to ask you, because you now work with clients and you help them with this, how much is what worked for you working for others, and how much do you have to tailor make the approach to the individual? What are the core pieces that work for everyone, and what is, because everyone is unique after all. I think we've alluded to that a couple of times in the show. And so yeah, because it sounds like it's not a one size fits all. So tell us a little bit about how that works, because you discovered what worked for you and now you're working with clients, but presumably you can't translate 100% cookie cutter what worked for you onto the clients. So it's sort of like, well, what are the core elements and what are the bits that are tweaked for the individual?
So everybody has their own story of what gave them their illness to begin with. So that's where we kind of start. We have to find out in their core belief system. Typically, it's usually between the ages of 0 and 7 that they put on a core belief system, and they've made that their pattern. So they necessarily can't find that, but I can repeat back to them something that this is how I hear it. Da 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 da. And so when I say it that way, and they actually hear it, the light goes on.
Yeah. Great. Well, I'd love to talk more about it, but unfortunately we are at the end of the show. So instead I should ask you to share with the listeners, if they want to purchase your book or they want to find out more about you and what you do, how can they connect with you?
So first of all, maybe we should do a part 2.
And a 3 and a 4.
Right? So maybe we should consider that at some point, because there's so much to talk about. Second thing is, you can find my book at Amazon.com or BarnesandNoble.com or BooksAMillion.com. You can reach me through my website, which is my name, Maria Aparis. That's my email, MariaAparis.com. And you can also send me an email, and that's my name, .aparis@yahoo.
Great. Well, thank you so much for being on the show, Maria. I've really enjoyed it. And I kind of want to read your book.
I hope so. Oh my goodness. I hope it inspires you to buy my book.
Yeah. So yeah, thank you so much. And listeners, you've been tuning in to Unlocking Your Truth with Dr. Leslie and with Corey.
That's
and
me.
Today's guest, Maria Aparis.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you for joining us. You've been listening to another Unlocking Your Truth podcast by Dr. Leslie Phillips. For more information, go to our website at drlesleyphillips.com. That's drlesleyphillips.com, where you can ask questions or send her an email, and there's many free gifts on there for you as well. You can also find the questions that were asked during this show at the website on our free card reading podcast page, where you'll find a full list of them. Come back again.